let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that went on last year, and let me get
Where
both
do
you
we
guys'
start,
opinion.
Mark?
Oh, well, I want to ask you guys a little bit about who you think the wrestler of the year was, and what makes that award, because you have so many different people giving their criteria for who what makes the wrestler of the year. I heard Jim Cornette say, well, it was the top guy in the top company. And I really feel like there's more to it than that. So if you were picking the person who was the wrestler of the year, who is that person for 2023? And I'll start with you, Rick.
Male, female, both.
Let's go. Well, let's do both. I mean, if you were picking one person.
MJF and Becky Lynch.
Wow, Becky Lynch, huh?
Yes. Overall body of work, I think Becky has just had the better year of anybody else. And I would think her next closest competition is Rhea Ripley. Now, that is not a knock on Rhea's year. I think Rhea has had a spectacular year. And I think she is on the verge of being the biggest star in the entire company. So I'm fully expecting, if we're on this show a year from now, it's going to be a landslide victory for Rhea Ripley. But I just look at the overall body of work for Becky. When you look at marquee opponents, marquee matches, the abbreviated run that she had with the NXT Women's Championship, where, yeah, it was 8 weeks long, but every single match that she had helped was there was a purpose. It was to help elevate somebody. And she went out there and she had great match after great match after great match. Where Rhea has faltered is the fact that she hasn't had the Batman to her Joker. She has not had a big rival or a big feud this entire year. She has been used more to elevate Judgment Day on the men's side of things than she has as the world heavyweight champion for the women's division. And that's not any fault of her own. That is completely the fault of the creative booking of the rest of the women's locker room on Monday Night Raw for the past year, until Triple H recently took over and realized, oh, we got some work to do. Let me start building up some of these other women on the roster because they're really, really talented. So through no fault of her own, Rhea has suffered from the fact that she hasn't had that one person to really kind of have that memorable feud, where Becky, it wasn't perfect. It had its ups and downs, but that feud with Trish, culminating with one of the greatest cage matches I have ever seen, men or women involved, for me, gives her the nod. And I think MJF, the guy's just carried AEW this year. I mean, he has carried AEW this year. He has been the focal point, the guy, multiple segments, multiple stories. The promos always hit. His title defenses have been great. The culmination of the story with him and Adam Cole last night, the guy fighting through injury after injury towards the end of the year. For me, again, just an overall body of work thing. You could sit here and say, oh, well, the top guy for the top company, Roman's the man. Roman is absolutely the man, but am I going to give him Pro Wrestler of the Year when he's wrestled like 6 matches? Am I going to do that? I love Roman Reigns to death, and I think less is more with him, but overall body work, I'm giving it to MJF. I'm giving it to Becky.
Wow. David, what do you think?
Now, I agree with the MJF, like spot on with everything he said. Like, he's definitely a workhorse and just has evolved that company and stayed consistent. So MJF, and we can't forget about the biggest comeback, of the year when Nia Jax came back. And
I like Nia signing. She's exactly what they needed on Monday Night Raw, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's good stuff. But I mean, if you look at Impact, and obviously I'm a CM Punk guy, like and if you take a step back and you look at, like, obviously his in work and his mic skills is ridiculous. But if you look at all the drama behind the scenes and put that into a wrestling storyline, could have been one of the greatest storylines we've seen over the year. And the comeback was just huge. And the impact that he's made on, in such a short time being back, it's ridiculous.
See, that would be an interesting argument that you can make an argument and say that CM Punk was the wrestler of the year, even though he had all this trouble, just because of the impact that he had on both of those companies.
Right.
I would almost look at it as a like a Times Man of the Year kind of thing, where he wasn't necessarily the performer of the year, but he was definitely the guy that drove the headlines. Like, he was the most influential wrestling figure this year, hands down, period, end of story. Like, there's no competing with that.
Yeah, yeah.